Alright, so we're just going to have a small change to the format here. I'm actually going to do a post-transfer window report, just covering all the bases that I missed in the first videos because it was all preseason signings and reports and preseason tournament, and obviously the start of the season with the first 3 games. So there's a few grounds I didn't cover, so we're going to round it all up, and I'm going to explain reasons for things being what they are. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because I don't want to spend really too long doing this, because most of it is on the same grounds as last year, especially in the objectives. It's the same kind of thing as last year, and I think we've got pretty much the same objectives as last year. So in the youth development, I'm not really sure why this is always low priority, because Manchester United were the catalyst for young players back in the day. It's not so much now because of Jose Mourinho, but it's quite unusual how it's a low priority at Manchester United when it was always known for that. But a lot of the cultures and ways of the team have gone since pretty much Jose Mourinho took over, or maybe even since Sir Alex left, and obviously Woodward being in the Glazers and all that. But that's all real life stuff that I don't really want to talk to because it's not the purpose of the video. This is about the video game. So in youth development, excuse me, is signed 2 players younger than 20 years old with potential greater than the average overall rating of players currently in the same position. Now, I already had one because of bringing Alex Hunter and Danny Williams, but only one of them counted, and I'm assuming it's Danny Williams because he starts out as a 75 and Alex starts out as an 80 or so. So I'm assuming Danny Williams was the one player that we had there, and the other one was the deadline day signing of Borussia Dortmund striker Alexander Isak, and I've now finished that objective, so that's half of the reason why we signed him. The other one is signed 1 youth player to the senior team the same season they were scouted, played him in 5 matches as either the starting 11 or coming on as a substitute. We'll do what we did last year and pretty much do that after the second transfer window, when we know where we need to strengthen and cover for the end of the season. So we've got almost a whole squad worth of players there that are eligible to do it. Well, some of them aren't. Some of them are too young. Well, probably will be eligible in a few months or so. So yeah, that's pretty much what Manchester United used to do. And sadly, it's not so much now. A lot of the values have been kind of forgotten about over the last few years. Brand exposure is critical. It is Manchester United, it makes sense. So gain 176,000 or million, I'm not sure. I think it's 100,000. Earnings from shirt sales within a season. Thanks to the pre-season and the first 3 games of the season already, we've already reached 42%. So I don't think that's going to be very difficult to do. So I think we should be fine there. No financial objectives because Manchester United are hella rich somehow, even though we've been run by the Glazers, but I've mentioned that before. This is a bit... I'm not really sure why the game expects us to win the league and win the FA Cup, but of course, this is my own storyline, so these objectives are superfluous. The only reason I dominate how I do is because I need to match these. But then again, just to make it to the end of the season, and then we move on to FIFA 20. But generally, even if you come close, I think you'll be mostly okay. I think you'll make it to the end of the season at the very least, even if you don't achieve these objectives. So we're not really worried about that. As long as we get to the end of the season and get to the beginning of FIFA 20, we should be all good in the case of this storyline. Winning the FA Cup seems a bit more of a realistic possibility because in real life, Jose Mourinho reached the FA Cup final, which means as this story is taking over a lot of what last season did for reasons I explained in the opening video, Gregg Popovich made it to the FA Cup final. So the board just wants us to take one more step and win the thing this time, and we have the potential to do that now. Short-term success is rather unusual, reaching the Champions League final. Now, obviously, in the game, anything is possible. We know that from last season when I did a dramatic comeback against Paris Saint-Germain to get through to the semi-final. But reaching the final in real life, I don't know why they gave us that. Because in real life, we're getting nowhere near the final. We're plain and simply, we're not on the level of Manchester City. So how are we even going to be on the level of Real Madrid or Barcelona I have no idea. We're not getting part. We'll probably get past the group stage and then we'll probably be knocked out the last 16 again, like we were last season. So how the game expects us to reach the final, with that in mind, I have no idea. But we'll hopefully get the rub of the green. We'll have to get the rub of the green on that one and just hope that we don't get anyone really huge like Barca or Real Madrid, quite frankly. The long-term one is actually a lot more realistic. Win the Champions League within 3 seasons, which is actually quite doable. But obviously, in the game, we don't really do more than 1 season because it generally carries over to FIFA 20 anyway. So that's how the objectives look. So let's just actually take a look at the youth staff and see who they found. Well, actually, we don't really need to do that because we're not really looking at these. Well, we can have a look anyway, I guess. So 1 scouts for a winger because Manchester United have been very short on wingers in the past. We have more fullbacks than wingers, I would have thought, or naturally minded wingers. I mean, defensive minded, obviously, because we kind of lack a decent central defender, I suppose. Even though we signed Maguire during the summer transfer window. So I think the scout report is who we haven't signed on yet, which is definitely the case. It's these are the ones we haven't actually signed yet. So I don't think I'm just keeping an eye on these guys to see if their overalls and potentials go up. There's some pretty cool like highly rated gems in here, like this guy, and these guys aren't too bad, I suppose. Contrary to what a lot of people think, I think the youth academy thing really works out. You really find gems in it. And I found Nicholas Mason wasn't as good as Hugh Cooper or Ollie Cox last season, but I don't think I really built him up that much. I am doing that with the squad this year, so I am going to be focusing a lot more on the youth players we already have, which is having a look at the scout reports at the moment. So we actually sent this Scottish guy to the US because, of course, they did, because Gregg Popovich makes sense. There's some actual real gems here. There's like a kid who's 15, and his potential's like a 94, to 85 and 94. That's quite insane. This guy looks like Tim Duncan. That's hilarious. But yeah, if they have particularly high potential and overall rating, do snap them up immediately because they will be obviously tempted away by other academies, so just be mindful of that. But I'm not really looking to really sign those guys just yet. So here's who we actually have. We have a right winger here, so that will help. So we can build him. He's already eligible to take part in the team, so that will really help because obviously we're light on wingers, as I said earlier. Centre forward, that'll work. We don't really need this kid. Yeah, the central midfielders are not really a problem. Is he got... Can he be played somewhere else? No. And as you can see, the player is actually too young to be promoted to the senior squad, so he can't yet. He's the only one of these that actually can't, I think. I think there might be a couple more. Left winger, that would be good cover for Alexis Sanchez. And yeah, plenty of wingers here, so there's plenty of cover for the future. Although this kid is unfortunately locked at the moment. This guy can be played. So yeah, we'll look at how the status is in January, and then we'll bring these kids through if we have to. Probably not the centre midfielders. Probably the Cam might work. Marcus Rose, he might work. But yeah, we'll do what we can in the training with a lot of these kids. And then we'll bring them through. We'll bring probably 1 or 2 accordingly to fulfill the youth objective. So there's that. I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, our transfer budget is 150. That's for all the sellings we made. I think we'll probably talk about that next. So let's do that. Let's find out where they are. I think it's here. So we'll go to the club and we'll go all the way down to the bottom. Now, obviously, Alex Hunter. There is a story involving him, but we'll talk about that in a second. But what I will mention here is that when you unlock him, he actually is at Real Madrid by default, and you can buy him out with his release clause of 70 million, which I did because I actually thought it would be cool if I did that. So that's why we would set back 70 million pretty much right at the start. With Danny Williams, he was already at Manchester United, so you didn't really have to worry about him. So we've got both Alex Hunter and Danny Williams in the game, at least for this season. I'll talk more about that in a sec. So Rojan Williams was actually one of the kids I sent out on loan because I didn't think he was really going to get a lot of game time. With Harry Maguire, the signing, Bailly, Lindelof, Jones, Rojo, all those players. We've got enough really cover at centre-back to cover for almost the entire season. And obviously we can recall them from their loans if we need to. So we sent Rojan Williams out on loan. I utilised him a couple of times last season, but I think the signing of Harry Maguire would set him back a bit and he'd be just sitting there for the most part. So we sent him out on loan. With Sergio Romero, as you know, Gregg Popovich's kind of style over the last couple of seasons has been focused on the young player. And in the storyline, the rise of Joel Pereira has really set Romero back in the pecking order. So Gregg Popovich, rather than just have him sitting doing really nothing, he figured he would like to go and play somewhere. And he signed for Besiktas for £10.2 million, which is actually quite a good offer for someone who's 31 years of age. So actually that's rather impressive. I think with Romero, he is the perfect backup to David De Gea. But I think, not that you really have to worry about this, but him at 31, I think in real life, people would start to get worried about goalkeepers at that age. Because obviously they need to be very agile and jump very well. And obviously being a goalkeeper at old age sometimes doesn't really work out. You start being slow and your reaction times are slower just by the natural course of life. So, well, that sounds really weird. But, yeah. So obviously the rise of Joel Pereira, like I said, sets him back. So there's really no point in keeping him. And in FIFA, you only generally need 2 keepers because keepers generally never get injured in FIFA, like hardly ever at all, unless it's a training injury. Ashley Young, simply because I hate Ashley Young as a player. I'm just going to say this very quickly. I don't know why we're offering this guy a new contract. I've never liked him at the club. He dives around the place like a fairy, and yeah, I just hate him. I mean, I'm going to give him some credit though. Unlike Marouane Fellaini, Ashley Young does have some smidge of talent, and to be fair to him, he has done really well to translate to a left back because he was really a wing for so long. But I generally just don't like the way he just dives around the pitch, really. But he's got more talent than Marouane Fellaini, so I guess Ashley Young is worth something. I guess he's worth more than Fellaini, I suppose. But we sold him. Being a left back, and with Luke Shaw and Cameron Borthwick-Jackson that I'm going to be using this season, there was just no space for Ashley Young, and he's 33, so it makes sense to kind of clear out the sort of, is Deadwood the right term? Probably. I don't want to really use it and be harsh, but yeah, Ashley Young is probably one of those players that, you would want him for experience, but Gregg Popovich is kind of doing a rebuilding effort in a way, so he really doesn't fit with what we're doing. So he was sent off to Napoli for 4.7, which is probably not that bad actually. Probably could have got a bit more out of Napoli for that one, but we'll just leave it at that. I wanted to get rid of him anyway. Dimitri Mitchell, the same reason really for Cameron Borthwick-Jackson and Luke Shaw. Now, unfortunately, Luke Shaw got injured against, was it Brighton? And suffered an ACL injury, ironically. So I might be calling back Dimitri Mitchell earlier than I planned. But we'll see how the season goes and how injuries go. Antonio Valencia, pretty much the same reason as Ashley Young. But unlike Ashley Young, I like this player. But again, Timothy Fusu-Mensah, Cameron Borthwick-Jackson, Diego Dallo, much younger players. Much more tooled up for a rebuilding effort. And Valencia just, unfortunately, just doesn't fit. So we sent him off for Roma. £11 million from Roma, which is a very impressive offer. I wasn't going to turn that one down. Now, Nemanja Matic is part of the storyline of not really my player, so something will be done about it. And he wasn't. Gregg Popovich came in, and these signings were already penciled in by Jose Mourinho, and Woodward handled the rest and got them in. So he's seen kind of the thing of his ways and stepped back and let Greg come to him. with some signings, which is why we've made the signings we have. Nemanja Matic was not one of his players, so he has been sent back to Chelsea, ironically, for £35 million. Now, in real life, Matic has not really been great. He's been kind of poor, to be honest. A lot of people are calling and screaming for Gomez and Chong, but, Jose Mourinho's here, so they're never going to play. And Nemanja Matic is one of his favourites because Jose does that. It's more about who he wants to play rather than beneficial for the club, because at the end of the day, with Jose Mourinho, it's all about him and nobody else. He doesn't give a fuck about really anything apart from himself and his own ego, to be honest. But anyway, we'll carry on. I don't want to rant about that sort of stuff, so we'll move on. Marouane Fellaini, I don't have to say a fucking goddamn thing. I was getting rid of him regardless. It would have been Real Madrid, and I would have agreed to it. It's quite funny though. It would have a League 2 team would have bought him, and I would have gone for it. Is basically what I'm saying. I hate the guy. The guy. My little nephew and Time Lady Games' little niece have more talent playing football than Marouane Fellaini will ever do on the pitch. That's a fact. And it's quite funny, really, because AC Milan were showing interest, but didn't want to pay the 50 million or so pounds that we set for him. And I don't blame them, because he's not worth jack. But 10.6, not turning that down. He would have been a fucking free transfer, and I would have agreed to it. That's how much I hate Fellaini, quite frankly. Aaron Maguire we'll talk about in a sec, because he's in the squad report. Romelu Lukaku, I would have sold him anyway, to be honest. Lukaku, I barely utilised him in FIFA. Every time I played Lukaku, he was just bad for some reason in FIFA. I don't know whether it was a bug or he was just generally not great, but nah, I couldn't use Lukaku for anything. And with Martial and Rashford banging in the goals, and then the signings of Alex Hunter and Danny Williams, was there any really need for Lukaku? No, I would have sold him to anywhere, really. Although Liverpool were the only ones that came with an offer, but I'm not sending Lukaku to Liverpool. And then, out of nowhere, £105.9 million from Real Madrid. Okay, I know they've got the money, but what the fuck? I broke the release clause in Lukaku's contract. I didn't really have a choice. So I was like, fine, I'm taking that. £105.9 million? Yeah, give me the money. He's not worth it, but give me the money anyway. What matter is another really old player, not really old, but old player, which doesn't really fit again with Gregg Popovich's kind of rebuilding effort. £21.5 million from Lyon, which is very impressive offer. I really didn't expect that. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, as you can tell, a lot of the older players and deadwood players have been kind of shipped out, and the average age probably in the squad has come down considerably, and we'll talk about Alexander Isak in a minute, which leaves us with the squad report, I think, because I don't think there's anything else to cover here. We already had a look at the table from last time. I don't really use the global transfer network that much at all. We'll make signings in January if we have to, but they'll really be cover more than anything else. I might just loan out some guys instead, but we'll see how the market is. So finally, we'll just go over the squad hub. We'll go through this as quickly as we can. David De Gea, most obviously, top goalkeeper, with Joel Pierre behind him now. But I've really noticed something over the last couple of FIFAs, that David De Gea is 91 overall rated goalkeeper, yet he's barely been able to keep a clean sheet in the last 2 games. FIFA games, I mean. He's not kept a clean sheet this season yet, and Joel Pierre had one against Brighton. So I really think there might be a bug or something where your lower rated keepers are better than your star ones. It was like in the World Cup. Manuel Neuer couldn't save a shot going straight at him. The ball went straight through him into the back of the net. So I think there's a bug with highly rated goalkeepers, and they're not as, they play so poorly and don't keep clean sheets or anything. I mean, Spurs, I'd understand it, but I'm not really sure what Leicester was about. Mind you, to be fair, Albrighton's strike was pretty insane, and so was Dele Alli's. The goals that were conceded, that David De Gea conceded, were actually freaking good goals, to be fair. So I think we can kind of slag on that one. But generally, David De Gea just doesn't manage to keep a clean sheet for some reason, and Joel Pierre can keep one against Brighton. I mean, I know Brighton aren't the strongest of sides, but it just doesn't make any sense. Joel Pierre and Sergio Romero probably have more clean sheets than David De Gea combined last year. So I really think there's an issue there, but EA's not going to address it because EA doesn't care. But yeah, that's really weird. Dean Henderson and Kieran O'Hara, we don't really need to talk about these kids. Dean Henderson's been on the verge of the squad for ages. Kieran O'Hara, I've barely heard of him, so I don't really know that one. There's a reason why I'm doing these reports. I'm going to keep an eye on the ratings, which I'll explain right about now. So, Joe Piera. Now, you might immediately recognize that his overall is of 80. I'm kind of semi-cheating and boosting his stats a bit, because with Joe Piera and Angel Gomez in particular, I think when I grew them in FIFA 18 last year, they were exceptional. Angel Gomez was one of the star players in the team last year. He was exceptional, growing him up to about, I think it was the 70 or 71, excuse me. So, yeah, I figured Joel Piera, he had a really stunning end to last season, if you remember. He set that penalty from Lacazette, and he actually did some really good performances. He did really well against Brighton as well. He was really good. So, Joel Piera definitely is becoming a star in this game. Yes, I've boosted his stats a little, but I needed him to kind of break even with Sergio Romero, considering I was always going to sell him. So that's partly the reason, but the other reason is with Gomez and Piera in particular, I wanted to grow them to round about what they reached in FIFA 18, because this is a bit of a storyline. Yes, I know the real results are carrying over from last year, but with the players in particular, Piera and Gomez, I wanted to boost them up a bit and put them up to where I think, well, I couldn't remember from last year where they reached, but I'm probably pretty close with someone like Gomez, and Piera probably not as much. I'm not sure. I don't know what his overall was to begin with. I think it was a 76 or something, so I haven't really boosted him up too far. But obviously, if he's going to play the backup to David De Gea, might as well give him a stat boost. Why not? I'm not going to be using him all the time over David De Gea anyway, so, it's not like I'm cheating and boosting his stats. I've only done it with 2 players, so, I know it sounds like maybe I'm cheating a little bit, but I'm not going to use Pierre all the time anyway. So, I only used him against Brighton to give him his first start of the season. He kept a clean sheet, so that's weird. But that's the thing. Like I said, Pierre is still lower than David De Gea, and David De Gea can't keep a clean sheet in this game, so yeah, that's just such a strange thing. I've noticed that for the last 2 FIFAs now. It's just really weird. Matthew Darwin is kept there. Nothing more as cover for Fuji, Mensah, Dallo. Yeah, you get the gist. Fuji Mensah's already grown by 1. He was absolutely fucking insanely beastly against Brighton, as was Cameron Bulford-Jackson. Now, I haven't boosted Fuji Mensah's stats at all, because I didn't use him last year. And this is the reason why I'm doing these reports. I'm going to do one at the end of the season as well, so I can jot down the overalls of all these players and kind of have them the same for Season 3. When we reach the Coach Park era in Season 20, FIFA 20. And then we'll probably see where we go from there as far as that's concerned. I don't know whether I need to do more yet. Like I said in the beginning video, there are questions over whether Gregg Popovich will continue to coach the San Antonio Spurs in real life. So we might follow that real world situation if we have to. But Fuji Mensah was so beastly against Brighton. He was insanely good. And I can't wait to finally give him the game time he deserves, because Jose Mourinho was a complete idiot and sent him on loan to fucking Fulham. On loan again. This kid should be a starter right about now. I'm not even joking. He should be picked over Valencia 50 times over. Why is this kid not playing? Seriously. It makes me angry because I'm such a huge fan of Fuji Mensah. When Louis van Gaal was playing him, this guy was a beast. He got stuck in. It was wonderful. Dude, this kid is going to be a beast. Are we going to do what we did with Paul Pogba and let go of a potential world star? If Jose Mourinho has anything to do about it, yes. Diego Dallo is frustrating because of what Jose is doing with him. Diego Dallo is actually a good one because he can play left back, which will be a nice cover for Luke Shaw. But Diego Dallo is an annoying situation because Jose just isn't picking him. It's amazing that Jose is spending this money on these players and then not using them. I'll get to that in a sec. But Diego Dallo looks very promising to me. I think he could be part of the club's future if we get rid of Jose sooner rather than later, because he's obviously not going to play him because reasons. Victor Lindelof really starting to come into his own. I'm very happy about that because I think this kid has potential to be the centre back we so desperately need. Because we haven't got. Is world-class centre-back the right word? Because I don't think we could buy one. So I think in the case of like Harry Maguire, I think it was probably the next best thing. But under Louis van Gaal, we could have had Mattis Hummels. But Ed Woodward's he's a tool. Eric Bailly is another one that is fallen into the Bastian Schweinsteiger situation of being ostracised by Jose Mourinho because at the end of the day, he's not playing him, not for the good of the club, just for the good of his ego. I hate Jose Mourinho, I really do. I'm sorry, I do. I don't want to rant about it, but I just hate him. And this is why Eric Bailly should be a surefire starter ahead of fucking Chris Smalling. I mean, what the fuck? Harry Maguire was actually one of the more impressive names in the England setup in the World Cup this year. And I believe a lot of players have benefited from what Gareth Southgate did at the World Cup in Russia this year. Because Gareth Southgate, I believe, will he be a World Cup winner? It remains to be seen. But I think Gareth Southgate has already set the standard for England management. Because unlike the likes of Sven-Göran Eriksson, Steve McLaren, and all those, Fabio Capello, and all those people, Gareth Southgate had the balls to tell Joe Hart to sit on the fucking curb. Because I'm going to say this right now, Joe Hart is not a world-class keeper. He's been exposed at Burnley and West Ham as the kind of not world-class keeper that he is. The only reason people thought he was world-class is because he played at Manchester City, and because Manchester City have any player they fucking want, he didn't really have to do anything. So I think he's been exposed for the poor keeper that I always believed he was, really. And Jordan Pickford was sensational, but unfortunately we only finished fourth. But that was our best World Cup performance for years. So Harry Maguire and all, Loftus-Cheek, Pickford, Alexander-Arnold, did he go? Alexander-Arnold, Rashford, all these young players. Gareth Southgate took young players with a point to prove in a way, but no one expected England to make it as far as they did, and I think it worked in our favour. And it allowed Gareth Southgate to take some unknown names, put them out on the pitch, give them their caps and give them experience, and they delivered, hugely delivered. And Harry Maguire was one of them, and I loved him. And is he the centre-back we desperately need? Probably not, but considering Jerome Boateng, Mattis Hummels, all those people are going to be like heavy transfer fees, and we'd already spent 70 million on Alex Hunter. Harry Maguire was pretty much the next best thing. So that was the reason for that. Obviously, we recouped a lot of our losses, but then the transfer window closed, and I was pretty happy with what Maguire has done so far. So I don't think we'll be really changing that up. So yeah, Harry Maguire, awesome. John Williams sent out on loan to an NSSC. I believe it's in France. Can't really remember. He's a right back, so we can recall him as well. So with Rojan Williams and Dimitri Mitchell, if we need to recall them for full-back reasons, we can. And Rojan Williams was okay. Dimitri Mitchell was actually really good last year as well. But I had to sit about on loan because I didn't think he was really going to get some game time because of Gregg's preferred formation is the 3-5-2, which I really found a way to work last year. Chris Smalling. Where did Mike Smalling go? You know what I mean? Because Chris Smalling, under Louis van Gaal, was sensational. Where's that Chris Smalling gone? Jose Mourinho, probably. That's all I really need to say about that. Marcus Rojo is another one who has been thrown to the curb. He had a decent run at Jose Mourinho in the early going, didn't he? I'm not sure why he's number 16 though. I might change that actually. Because that's Michael Carrick's number. And Rojo was 5, and no one uses 5 in real life at the moment. So I wonder if I should change this. We'll probably give him 25. I'm not too keen on him having 16 for some reason. It's more of a midfielder's number, isn't it? Generally. Excel Twantebe was one of those players that really did well in FIFA last year for me, so I brought him up as cover really. Axel Tuanzebe, I think, is pretty much what he was in FIFA 18, so I saw no real need to improve his stats much. So yeah, he remains unchanged, even though we just brought him back from his loan at Aston Villa, because I believe he's pretty decent and he can cover for if one of our main centre backs goes down. And obviously he's a sporadic player, so he won't be too fussed about not playing so much. Phil Jones, I love Phil Jones. People hate Phil Jones. I've already said all this before. There's nothing really new. I'm not really going to utilise him as much this year because of Maguire and Bailly and Lindelof, and Jones is injury prone. I don't know if that really factors into the game much. The game's injuries are random anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But he's going to fall. He falls down a little bit behind Maguire, Lindelof, and Bailly for me. But on his day, Phil Jones is still one of the best, not in the league, but one of the better players at the club anyway. Well, he's definitely ahead of fucking Fellaini. That's not too hard to do. Dimitri Mitchell, I just explained, he's on loan. We can recall him back if we fall weak at the left positions. Luke Shaw, well, what a cruel fucking irony this is, because Luke Shaw will be out for 6 months. He might return for the end of the season, but I don't think I'm going to push it, because he suffered an ACL injury. Ain't that some shit? You know, the injury that has been a very common injury in basketball. Gregg Popovich, a former basketball coach at the San Antonio Spurs, comes to Manchester United a season later, and Luke Shaw suffers an ACL injury. And it had to be fucking Luke Shaw, didn't it? It just had to be Luke Shaw, because, you know, continue to ruin his fucking day. I feel so sorry for Luke Shaw, dude. I mean, in real life, he's really come alive, and I'm happy about that. But I think Jose is just playing him out of fucking, out of just something. I don't think he's using him because he's good, and that's the case with a lot of players on this team. He's only playing them because he feels like he has to, not because they're good. Oh, what is Cameron Borthwick Jackson and Fuji Mensah doing out on loan, dude? Seriously, Borthwick Jackson, to stick with the game because I don't want to rant. Like I said, Fuji Mensah and Borthwick Jackson were fucking sensational against Brighton, so he was going to be in my plans for the future anyway. I'm glad they're on loan, but I would rather have Jose sacked than lose Borthwick Jackson and Fuji Mensah to clubs that would utilise them and bring the best out of them. They were two of the best players under Louis van Gaal, and I was never a Van Gaal out, dude. And Borthwick Jackson, Rashford, Fuji Mensah, they're the kind of players that I just wish Louis van Gaal had stayed on, but, you know, people, I guess. Yeah, you know, because there is one thing I will say, and I think it's just so glaringly obvious how much Jose Mourinho really gets away with. You know, he follows no traditions or values of this club or anything at all, and cultures they built or anything at all. He's not a Manchester United type manager. He's clearly not. But he gets away with so fucking much. Selling Daley Blind was a fucking huge boo-boo, in my opinion. Then he loans out Borthwick Jackson and Mensah again. The football is abysmal. The performances don't match what Manchester United is supposed to be about. But because it's Jose Mourinho, he gets the special treatment. And basically what I'm saying is, if it had been anybody else, he would have been out the door immediately. Anyone else would have been out the door for what Jose has done to this club. Anyone else would have been out of the door. Louis van Gaal won the FA Cup and was sacked a day later. Jose Mourinho loses the FA Cup and it's absolutely fucking fine. You do the math. Nothing really to say about me. That's my own story. Andreas Pereira, I don't know where he's gone, but he's a young player, and Jose Mourinho doesn't like young players, so, you know, Jose. But, you know, it's just the same thing with all these young players. We're never going to see him. Andreas Pereira has been on the fringe of the first team for years. Why is he not playing? Why? I don't understand it. He's been on the fringe for years. He had a great preseason. Yes, I know it's preseason, but, you know, even preseason proves how good people can be. Why is he not playing? I don't get it. Well, I do get it, Jose Mourinho, but the board ain't going to sack him, are they? Let's be honest. Ethan Hamilton, I can't really say anything on him. Good thing is he's left wing, so I might utilise that at some point, but we don't really know anything about him. We're probably not going to know anything about him. We'll probably be on loan before too long. to that scene, Scott McTominay has come from absolutely nowhere. I think a lot of people say Ferguson has had a say in this. Good. I hope he has. And I hope Ferguson has more says with the fucking board, because quite honestly, they're destroying the place right now. Manchester United, like I said, used to be a haven for young players. It used to be a haven for young players. It used to progress. And even if you didn't make the team, some people went on to be stars. Paul Pogba, for example. Gerald Piqué. You know, even if you don't make the United side because of the likes of Paul Scholes, Nemanja Rio Ferdinand, at least you go somewhere and you become world stars. And I'm worried about that with Fuzi Mendonça and Wilfred Jackson. I really am. I really am worried about that. Scott McTominay, though, people are on the fence. Some people like him. Some people don't think he's really bang average. I don't know. But then Jose isn't helping him by playing him at fucking centre-back. So, you know, reasons. I personally think he could be quite decent, but I don't know if he would get in the starting lineup ahead of a lot of the players that are in front of him on a regular basis. I don't know. So isn't Fred just amazing for a 50 million pound player? Oh wait, he's barely fucking played. See, it's quite funny. I don't want to rant, but it's quite funny, isn't it? How everyone says, oh, Jose hasn't been backed by the board. Jose should really get backed in January with a huge transfer fee budget. And I'm like, dude, he's not using the money he's spending now. Where has Fred gone? He was signed, I barely seen him. It's like, dude, he's not even utilizing the money he's spending now. So what chance would anybody have if they came over to Manchester United in the first place? There was even a player or two that turned us down. That wouldn't have happened years ago. Any player would have loved to play for Manchester United. That's how much Jose Mourinho has destroyed this club. Players don't want to play us anymore, and other teams don't fear us as much as they used to. It's glaringly obvious that Jose Mourinho is the real problem, but people decide to put the blame on Woodward instead, even though it's Jose that sends the team out. You know, with Woodward and the Glazers, it's easy, isn't it? With Woodward and the Glazers, it's easy to blame them, because, you know, the Glazers have sucked us dry, and Woodward has no idea what it is about football, and that's true, he doesn't. But that's just the easy way out, isn't it? It's just easy to put blame on it because nothing can be done about them because they're the owners. But let's not blame Jose. Oh no, let's not blame him because it's Jose Mourinho. He's a fucking god, so he gets away with anything he wants to fucking do. Fuck off. Anybody else that does what Jose would do and they'd be out the door at any other club, any other person would be in that club. If it would be in this club, and if they did what Jose did, they would be fucking sacked. But 2-0 down and against Newcastle on the brink of the sack, Jose comes in against Newcastle, 2-0 down. What do the fans do? They chant his fucking name all fucking evening. Fuck off. If you're cheering for fucking losses, you fucking deserve him. You deserve it. If you're cheering for 2-0 down, you're chanting his name to stay. You deserve that shit. Go and fucking support whatever team he manages next season and get the fuck out of here. Anyway, yeah. You reap what you fucking sow, assholes. I'm sorry, it's the fans' fault. If they wanted Louis van Gaal out so fucking bad, even though he clearly had a roadmap for the club's future. Yes, he used the youth after 16 injuries. Or whatever it was. But the youth he did pick blossomed. Rashford was 4 goals in like 3 games. Where is he now? He's playing left fucking wing. What does that tell you? You reap what you sow and you fucking deserve him. Go and fucking manage whatever next club he goes manage next. Because someone will fucking pick him up. Someone will. Because it's Jose Mourinho and it's just the lure of his fucking CV. Yeah, well he won fuck all last season, so there you go. Anyway, moving on. Ander Herrera, I really think he should be club captain, and he's not, because we don't really have a club captain that's there. Oh, wait, we did. Probably Daley Blind would have been a great candidate, but oh, he's not there anymore, for whatever fucking reason. So Ander Herrera is probably the closest we've got. Paul Pogba, it's Paul Pogba. Nothing more really to say. He's really having to defend himself. I think he's being really professional about what he's saying. I think, and this is what I think with most players, I really think a lot of the players don't want Jose at the club anymore. But, you know, they don't run the club. so they can't really do anything. They can drop down the tools and try, but it's Jose Mourinho. The only way he's leaving is if he leaves himself. Someone needs to speak up. Someone needs to speak up against this bullshit. And I don't think it'll fall to Paul Pogba. You know, Manchester United legends are questioning him. Other legends are questioning him. Cantona thinks it's an absolute disgrace. But, you know, Woodward's just a fucking tool. Angel Gomez really explained a lot about him. He was a sensational player last season. And I've boosted his stats a little bit because I think he was like a 64, which I think is what he's doing down there. I think his 70 is what we reached with him at the end of last season, so that's why I've put him there. And yeah. Karen Grubin has grown by 1 somehow, even though I don't think we're ever going to play him anyway. I'll find a way. He's on both wings, so that might help. Jesse Lingard, well, where have all the haters gone for Jesse Lingard? Still one of the better young players at the club, even though he's not really young. He's probably just reached his peak roundabout now, and last season proved that. All the haters went silent, and now they're probably back out in force criticising him again because they flip-flop like nobody's business, like most Manchester United fans. Wilfried Zaha is part of the storyline. I'm doing this storyline with Zaha because I feel that he didn't get a fair shot. And look what he was doing at Crystal Palace. He's now made a name for himself again. So I feel with Wilfried Zaha, he's not really had a chance to make a name for himself. So I bought him back over from Crystal Palace last season. I would have done the same with Januzaj. I probably should have done the same with Januzaj, actually. Damn it. Especially when we don't really have a lot of wingers. Maybe Januzaj's an option. I'll see if I can buy him back. I probably couldn't now because I think he just signed for Real Sociedad. But Januzaj could be an option. I don't think Gregg Popovich would want to have any more players that were just there and just out of nowhere. It's difficult. It's difficult, especially considering Gazay Zardes is part of his story as well. Maybe I won't do that thing with Januzaj. As much as I loved him, I don't know. And Memphis as well. You know, we had all these wingers like Januzaj and Memphis, and where are they all now? They're all somewhere else. Convenient. Jesse Zardes is part of the storyline of bringing in because he was obviously part of the journey last season, and being a known part of the journey last season, I just thought I'd try him out and use the storyline of, you know, he's from the United States, so obviously he and Gregg Popovich already had that kind of chemistry, as it were. It really worked out, didn't it? You know, in this storyline, Greg finishes second in the league, gets to the FA Cup final. Yes, he gets knocked out by Sevilla in the Champions League and crashes out the Carabao Cup as well. But, you know, Jesse Zardes, obviously the teacher, in a way, to Gregg Popovich, because obviously he's had that time in the MLS. And he's actually one of the rare players that actually goes from the MLS to the Premier League. He did really well last year, Jesse Zardes. He actually did. He was really good in the cup games especially. He seemed to thrive in them. 2 debuts in cups, 2 goals. Or was it 2 games in the Carabao Cup and 2 goals immediately. So, yeah. No doubt he was staying on. Mostly due to the storyline, but yes. Joshua Buai, we're not really going to see him. So there's no real point in talking about him, sadly. Alexander Isak. The second coming of Zlatan Ibrahimovic? Probably. I mean, we don't really know. He's a 69, he's tall, he's Swedish, and he's 18. And with that, there was actually... the other reason we signed him was we actually had 1 less attacker than midfielder, so I actually signed him on for the evening the numbers as well. So now we've got a pretty even and versatile squad. The Beast of FIFA, aka Marcus Rashford. This kid is a boss in FIFA. He and Martial, obviously, as you probably saw by the footage, tore it up last season. And yes. But now in real life, Marcus Rashford is sort of there because he's not being utilised correctly. Left winger, really. And it makes it blatantly obvious, doesn't it? Bags him in for England, can't do the same for United. Why do you think that is? Jose Mourinho. But yeah, he's the boss of FIFA. He literally just tears stuff up in FIFA. So I'm probably expecting a lot more. He got about, 21 goals last season in the league, so yeah, hopefully he'll get some more. So, Alex Hunter and Danny Williams. Yes, the really cool dynamic, and the thing I hid at the beginning of the first video. Yes, at the end of the Season 3 of the journey, you get to unlock Alex Hunter and Danny Williams for career mode. I wasn't passing on up on that, and that's why this playthrough took a bit of a longer to get going, because I decided to actually do a playthrough of the journey, but the whole entire journey ended in the middle of Season 2, and was a bunch of rant fests, quite honestly, just rants everywhere, and I almost put up a video of the whole compilation of all those rants, almost, but I didn't think it would be that entertaining, so I let it be. But yeah, Alex Hunter at the end of Season 3 of the journey, finally, because that mode is just such a bore, I couldn't pass up on it, and it would be cool, and it's just a shame that it'll only be for this season. The journey mode is a bore from beginning to end, in terms of gameplay. It's just a glorified career mode, or player career mode, but the story really picked up after Season 2. I think the story was good from Season 2 onwards. Season 1 was just fucking boring as fuck. But I think the biggest criticism I have about the journey is the fact that it kind of makes you think it's giving you player choice. It really doesn't mean shit. The journey is just a fucking novelty that probably wore out its welcome after Season 1, but they continued it for whatever fucking reason. And the other two seasons were just as boring. So, yeah. Anthony Martial. He's playing out of his skin to try and prove himself, but Jose Mourinho hates the young player, so he's obviously put on the scapegoat list already. But he's my new number 9 because I can do that. Danny Williams just explained about in the Alex Hunter section. James Wilson on loan at Aberdeen. I really feel this kid would have been a bit of a blossom by now if Ryan Giggs had taken over from Louis van Gaal, which was originally planned and what should have been done, but sadly no. Teef Chong is literally being on the bench because Jose feels he has to do that and not because he's good, and it disgusts me how this kid is being treated. But then it's Jose Mourinho, so I'm not really fucking surprised. He's one of the players I'll be bringing into a lot of training sessions throughout this season, like what I did with Gomez last. So yes. And finally, Alexis Sanchez, who is dropped by 1 somehow. I'm not really sure how. I love the work ethic of Alexis Sanchez. But sadly, he's been one of the scapegoats because Jose Mourinho likes to throw his players under the bus and let fans do the criticising of them rather than him. And unfortunately, Alexis Sanchez, even though he covers every blade of grass like Park Ji-sung, it's suffocating him that he's not allowed to have his own freedom and everything, and he just gets scapegoated. It's very unfair. I knew from the moment he signed it was a bad idea. And not because Alexis Sanchez is a bad player, he's not. But he is not a Jose Mourinho type player. So why did Jose sign him? Did he sign him even? Did he want him? Probably not. But Ed Woodward does that. And good thing too, because if he does, at least he can try and pick the right players, but he's under a manager of Jose Mourinho, and that's always a red flag to any player coming into Manchester United, and that's why we've had a lot of rejections from players joining the squad. They don't want to be with Jose Mourinho. Who can fucking blame them? But Alexis Sanchez, back to the point, is rather unfortunate in my honest opinion. I don't think he's a left winger. I really don't. I don't see that in Sanchez. I think he's more of a cam, really. So he's taking the 8 shirt because of Zaha, who's already doing wing duties. And I'm going to move Sanchez to more of a midfield role because I think he'd probably be better suited, especially in the cam position. And he couldn't have the 10 shirt because Rashford already had that. So, alright. So that's pretty much it for this kind of mid-season report in a way, even though we've had 3 games. You guys already know the table from the last game, so I don't really have to cover that. So, I think that's it. So the next game, post first transfer window, is against Burnley at Turf Moor. I believe we lost this in real life, so no real surprise there. There's going to be a debut for someone, possibly. So that'll be interesting if we see him. So without further ado, I will leave this video now before I waffle on too much. And I'll see you for Turf Moor for Burnley versus Manchester United.